Hi Mark.
Hello.
Hello everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Franchise Marketing Show. We were thinking of ideas of podcasts over the kind of upcoming episodes, and all I ever see on social media channels now are these like blind ranking thing challenges. Do you see them?
Mostly of footballers, yeah.
Yeah, blind rank these footballers, and then it's just footballers blind ranking other footballers.
Yeah.
It's weirdly really annoying content, but it must do really, really well.
Yeah, so we're trying to annoy you by doing it ourselves.
By trying it ourselves. We're not going to blind rank what we think are the biggest marketing challenges for franchisors,
Okay.
but we're going to talk over some of the biggest challenges for franchisors and work out our top 3 challenges for franchisors, and then maybe explore those topics in more detail in later episodes.
Okay.
So, as every creative does these days, I turn to ChatGPT as early as possible and ask ChatGPT for the biggest challenges for franchisors. And actually, what's come back, there's 7 challenges it's come back with, and they're pretty good.
Well,
So
it's going to be better than what you would have thought of, because ChatGPT is, you should be using it.
yeah, it's worked really well. So I've got 7 challenges.
Don't need your brain anymore.
No. And I thought if we chat around them and try and work out what the biggest challenges are to franchisors. And I suppose, obviously, we work with lots of franchisors. I talk about marketing in franchising all day, every day. And it's going to be interesting, I think, using that experience to work out what the biggest challenges are in 2025. So the first one is probably not a surprise, and definitely is a big challenge, and probably when talking about marketing and franchising is the biggest thing people talk about, and that's franchisee recruitment and retention.
Okay.
Now, I'm not sure the retention part is as much of a marketing activity, retaining franchisees necessarily.
That's more of a everyday.
That's more operational and the success of lots of things. But franchisee recruitment, clearly a massive challenge.
Yeah.
So
Cool. That's number 1.
I think that's fair. So, yeah, absolutely. The next one, managing brand consistency. And ChatGPT says, as the network grows, ensuring that all franchisees adhere to branding, customer service, operational standards is crucial but challenging.
Do you find that's an actual thing? Because I hear that, like, some franchisees like try and do their own thing. But do you find that with people? Because I think, like, if you're buying into a franchise, you know it's done a particular way because that's the reason you're buying it.
Yeah. It's definitely a challenge of marketing within franchising. Do I think it is the biggest challenge that I see within franchising? No. And that is, I think it is a challenge in some networks, but you've got such a...
Yeah, not from any I've seen.
No. And not the really good networks, no, because you've got different ends of the scale, haven't you, when it comes to branding in a franchise network. You've got the end of the scale of the massive household brands that we know who wouldn't let their franchisees do much local marketing where they could do anything with the brand anyway. They're so controlled.
Do a load of leaflets and loads of different fonts.
Yeah.
And they've fucked around with the logo and stuff.
They just won't do that. At the other end of the scale, I think this is where it does become an issue, is where there are franchise networks and franchisors that don't support the franchisees with enough branding collateral and all the tools that they need to be able to have that consistency of brand in the local marketing. So I there are issues with it, and I think, I think the issues come more when you get franchisees who are a little bit rogue and want to do their own thing, and they start creating their own thing and not following the model, I suppose, more so than anything else. So it is a challenge in franchising. Do I think maintaining brand consistency is one of the biggest challenges in franchising? No, because I think most franchisors, they know it's a staple of the model. Following the brand is...
You're buying into it for a reason.
Yeah, and I think if there are any issues with that, they're dealt with very, very quickly. So I don't think it is, potentially. Challenge 3, adapting to market conditions. So consumer behaviours shift rapidly due to economic conditions, technological advancements and competition. Franchisors must evolve their model accordingly.
So where we had the changes with like the national insurance stuff, would that be one of the things, I guess, challenges?
It could
because they'll be helping their franchisees navigate that as well.
From a marketing point of view, this is where I'm not totally sure if this is a marketing challenge or just a challenge of a franchisor adopting to market changes. I suppose market changes would be more around consumer behaviour. If consumer behaviour changes and the demand for particular products or services changes, and how you adjust your marketing accordingly. Interestingly, I always think franchise businesses are probably best placed a lot of the time to adapt to different marketing conditions. If you've got 100 local franchisees out across the UK, all operating locally, all getting feedback from customers, I always think franchisors are potentially a little bit more agile to the issues in market conditions, maybe more than a bigger business that don't have as many feet on the ground.
Do you find that within what you said, do you find that maybe there's like a way that they would do it in Newcastle and then a way they would do it differently in Southampton?
Yes. Yeah, that's a really good point, actually, in fairness. And I think really good franchisors are very aware of that, and they could have regional differences in loads of different ways of, that is a good point, and there definitely is that regional differences, even from a pricing point of view.
Yeah.
That comes into it. But I think, again, that's something I think franchisors are typically very, very aware of. I think that's a major issue. I think adapting to market conditions in general, especially in the world we live in now. But from a marketing point of view, I'm not sure that's a huge thing.
Put that towards the bottom.
Yeah. Number 4, legal compliance. So franchisors must comply with franchise laws that vary across regions and countries, adding complexity to operations. So for the vast majority of the franchisors that we work with, this probably isn't an issue. So this is very much an international...
Yeah, like if you're franchising in China, it's going to be different. The marketing conditions will be different to in the UK.
Yeah, and the things you can say and can't say and all those different kind of things. So yeah, if you're an international franchise brand or you're thinking of going international, the legal compliance of marketing in different countries does become a huge...
Yeah, it'd be well interesting that, wouldn't it, to
see
the differences.
It's a massive thing. I actually know someone that used to work in marketing with HSBC Global, and they said the differences of campaigns in different places, because one word, what it could mean in another country and stuff is massive. So
even like the UK and like the USA, like same language, but a way of doing business would be very different.
Yeah, and so I think that is a thing that international franchising. I think if you are in international franchising across loads of regions, countries, that compliance from region to region is a massive thing. Mm-hmm. I think for the majority of franchisors we know and work with, I don't think that is there.
Cool.
Next one, providing effective support and training. Franchisees rely on ongoing training and support. Poor training can lead to underperformance and brand damage. Interesting one. So from a marketing perspective, training franchisees, I suppose, constantly support and training and updating on marketing initiatives.
Yeah. Well, you always see like that support thing, like when I'm talking to franchisees, it's like they talk about the support that they get, and it's always important, like especially when they first start out, it's like they need to be, it kind of like drummed in a little bit, and they need the hand holding a bit more. But then the ones that have been there longer, they kind of like only need that support every now and again. Like they're flying really, aren't they? So I think that for the franchisees that are just sort of in the first couple of years, they would need that a bit more.
I think so. And I think the really good franchisors, I think they know the key marketing drivers for local franchisees. And whatever that may be, let's say it's Google Ads, for example. Google Ads is a massively important function for local franchisees to be successful. So really good franchisors will make sure there is a clear training or a very clear provider that they can use, or a clear way that they should have that up and running, and they're guided and signposted to how to do that, a best practice of how to run that marketing, if that makes sense. So it's very easy for the franchisee to turn that on and off and understand it. So I think really good franchisors know that the key drivers for customers, if there's, let's say, 3 of them, and there will be really, really clear support, guidance, brand collateral, going back to brand, keeping everything on brand for those things. And there'll be constant training and understanding what's working, what isn't working, how can it be improved, that going up to head office, tweaking the campaigns, then going back out to local. So I think it is really, really important.
And going back to your earlier point as well, like you said about stuff changing, like AI is one of the huge things that's changing, like how things work. So how are they implementing AI into stuff, into their marketing as well? Because like you've said it on the last few episodes. We talk about AI a lot, but like you shouldn't be like maybe like wholesale going into it and like buying into it right now, but just sort of dipping your toe in a few things and seeing what works.
Yeah.
Um,
that's a really interesting point, because that is something which franchisors will always have a bit of a struggle over, because you're going to get franchisees that say, I'm doing this thing locally which is massively working, like and whatever it is, and as a franchisor, before communicating that out to the network as a new initiative, right, as a network we are now going to do this because we're seeing success, you have to be really sure that is something that's worth franchisees investing and putting time into. And again, that's why having that kind of feedback coming up from local level of what campaigns, what marketing is working, and then putting the training support around the key functions to that. But it's very, very easy in the modern world to be diverted all the time. Yeah. Like, someone over here is using TikTok and it's working brilliantly. How do we now train the whole network to be TikTokers? That kind of thing. So it's also really important to be laser focused on, not getting too distracted, exploring all these other ideas, like how can AI be used? But actually, as the franchisor, you're very kind of firm on this is the model. These are the key marketing activities every local business should be doing. Here's exactly how you do them, exactly how you implement them. This is who you should be talking to. This is who you should use, that kind of thing, without getting too distracted. Because that's actually a danger of the training and support, that this new shiny thing comes along, you get distracted. And suddenly, if you tell franchisees to do it and they're spending lots of time and money on something which maybe isn't as effective. So, it's a biggie, actually, that one.
Cool. That's in the top 3.
I would think it is. Provide an effective training and support. Number 6, technology integration. Many franchisees struggle to implement and standardize digital tools, with CRM systems to online ordering platforms.
Yes, this is a massive one in the last few years, isn't it? Like, with technology and booking systems coming in, like there's a few companies I can think of that we know of.
I think COVID sped up
massively
the introduction of more technology tools into franchise networks, because before that I would always kind of feel like franchising was a little bit behind with technology.
Yeah, and also they were quite slow implementing new things. Yeah. Like when I first started working with Coconut, it was like video was like it's hard work to get people to buy into it. And now it feels like they sort of buy into stuff a lot quicker. And that's probably due to COVID, isn't it? Because like they had to keep things running, to keep the lights on, essentially.
Yeah, I think the problem franchisors always have with technology integration is there's multiple barriers, isn't there? One of the biggest barriers is that most of the systems that everyday businesses use for marketing are very hard to use at scale across a franchise network, if that makes sense, in a way that the franchisor has an element of control. The franchise-specific built systems, of which there are a lot, there aren't market leaders in kind of any area of that. So very often franchisors are trying to patch together a system which isn't meant for franchising into the franchise, or custom building, or trying to find something that's going to kind of work. So that's always been one of the barriers. But I think over the last few years, there has been a lot more. I can think of 10 examples very quickly of franchise marketing software. So it's marketing software made for franchising. Obviously a really good example of COVID, like Franscape. Theo took the system from Swimtime, turned it around, made it into a product for the franchise sector. So I think there are more products around now, which has helped. But the other challenge franchisors have is it's a massive project, and it's one you can't really get wrong. When you're going to integrate any type of software through a franchise network, you have to be certain that is going to bring value, it's going to work, you're going to get buy-in, you're going to train everybody.
It's a huge investment in money and time as well. I feel like, and you need... And I think you might think that, this will fix everything kind of thing. So you've got to be sure that it's going to work and it's going to be implemented across everyone. Yeah. Because it's going to take time and money to do that.
So I think that's actually improved over recent years. Is it a challenge? Yeah, I think it will always be an ongoing challenge, and probably over the next few years, AI is going to bring a whole new ton of challenges from it. But I actually think now, thinking of most of the franchise networks we work with, they have the other part of this actually as well, the danger is you can end up implementing too many different software products. You've got a software product to do this, another one to do this, and franchisees are spread across 15 different logins
how
for
do they
different
integrate
systems.
into each other?
Yeah, and actually that you can have too much, can't you? So I think the really good franchisors know the areas of the business where software can work really well and have implemented things in there. So I think it's one to keep an eye on. Do I think it's a huge issue at this point in time?
It's just outside.
Maybe.
It's like Europa League position. That
Yeah, blind ranking, not sure. Number 7, local marketing challenges. So while national campaigns are useful, ensuring that local franchisees execute localized marketing strategies effectively can be difficult.
Yeah.
It can be very difficult. I think this is a biggie. Kind of crosses over into that providing effective support and training slightly, but I think this is something which is very hard for a franchisor to completely manage and grasp and execute at local level, because ultimately the success of a franchise brand's marketing in general, take out some of the big nationals who can afford to do big national brand campaigns, the majority of franchisors' marketing success is going to be localized marketing campaigns, so campaigns in territory. If you take someone like McDonald's, they don't need to do as much localized marketing because they've got a huge national marketing presence. But for most other franchisors, how franchisees execute local marketing is ultimately how the franchise is going to grow. So this is a big challenge, and it is difficult. I think, and we're probably going to say this because it's obviously what Coconut does, but I think what I see too much is that the franchisor guides and has a guide of best practice and how a campaign should be implemented at local level, but the franchisee is left to do too much of the implementation, if that makes sense. Now, obviously, to really be effective marketing locally at the local level, the franchisee is going to have to be involved in doing some of that work, running the campaigns, being part of it. It's part of being a franchisee, running your marketing. But at some point for every network, there's a shared responsibility for that localized marketing. And sometimes I think in some franchise networks that shared responsibility is too much on the franchisee, and they're not given enough guidance on what to run, how to run it, all the tools they need so it can be running while they can be running their business as well. So I think it's a big challenge, and I think it can only be solved by really putting together all the different key marketing functions and providing a really solid toolkit for the franchisee to have complete guidance on how to do it. And that's why it does fall into that providing effective training and support a little bit.
Yeah, cool. Not really got much to add to that. I think you nailed that.
But yeah, so I think that is a big one. If we were to put these into a top 3 of challenges,
I think number 1's probably number 1.
Franchisee recruitment.
We kind of just went, yeah.
We didn't really we talk about franchisee recruitment all the time, don't we? It's always a massive topic when talking about franchising. Yes, it's hard.
Is it a big thing for like massive franchises?
Well, not if they've sold every territory.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's not a problem for. Well, no, not.
Are they because I spoke to some big franchises at the show at Olympia, exhibition. Sorry, and they were just sort of like, yeah, I was just here because we've got a few resales kind of thing, and there's not really any pressure. It's just like good to have their name there all the time.
Well, I think if they've obviously been good at franchisee marketing historically and have sold out all their territories, and they still need to keep marketing because there's always that churn of people selling their business and stuff. It's always tough, isn't it? And a lot of it's down to the conditions at the time and things like that. But it's an ongoing challenge for a franchisor. It's a big function of a franchisor, especially a growing franchisor, is the recruitment of franchisees. So it's always going to be a big thing. So I think it deserves to be in the top 3.
Okay.
Of an ongoing challenge for a franchisor. For me, then, it's between providing effective training and support for marketing, ongoing training support, and I think the other one is marketing challenges, local marketing challenges, which I think run hand in hand. But how do you get the really key messaging that you know as a brand has to get into the local marketing. How do you get that deployed at local level? And how do you get franchisees with all the tools and all the training and everything they need to go and do that? Because if there's any type of breakdown in that not happening, there's a really good chance the franchisor and the franchisee are not going to grow how you want them to. So for me, it's those two into the top three, with the technology integration just outside, I think.
Cool. Yeah, I'll go along with that.
So we haven't blind ranked the top three challenges, but I think the top three challenges in 2025 for franchisors in marketing: franchisee recruitment, providing effective ongoing training and support around the key marketing functions for franchisees to grow.
Yeah.
And finally, local marketing challenges. How do you deploy key marketing activities that you know as a franchise brand should be done at local level? And what is the percentage of work you do and the franchisees do?
Cool. We're going to discuss each of those in the future, in a future episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let us know what you think. If you disagree with us at all, let us know.
And if there's any other challenges you can think of that we haven't covered.
Yeah, we can talk about them. We need content.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks for coming.
Cheers.
Thank you.